when dealing with a physical disability, it doesn't mean that we aren't able to do anything. It just means we have to be creative. And we have to, again, keep praying and asking the Lord to help us, because otherwise things can get very frustrating. For instance, I'm about to have a lunch and I will eat it cold. I don't heat things up, because by eating cold meat, cold vegetables, anyway, it helps reduce inflammation, which then helps me to move around a little easier. So, just so you have a glimpse of how we need to be creative, how we need to do what we can to function as well as possible. Thank you, Holy Father, for this food. My normal strategy is to keep my physical challenges as subtle as possible. Typically, I don't like people to know how much of a struggle it is for me to do very normal things. So obviously those who are in my family, they know because they're always around me. But I try to minimize at least the appearance of trouble. Of course, I know that I always show more trouble than I hope to, but I know it's about pride. And in the past, I used to be most concerned that I was really thin, but I was capable of jumping or leaping. I was able to run track. I was able to do whatever I needed to do. I never did dance very well because, I don't know, my coordination wasn't so great. I know dancing already, I wasn't that great. As some people would say, at best, I was awkward in dancing. But as much as I possibly could, I would try to hide as bad as I've had it. For one, you don't want to burden people with a different person's problem, so you typically just don't share it. But there's many things and unfortunately, church Christian life in general, often it seems that we have to hide something, like someone who is having a problem of fear, really difficult with temptation to gossip or temptation to look at something on the internet that you're not supposed to. And unfortunately, in the church, the statistics are about the same. The statistics of divorce and whatnot is kind of the same if someone's, quote, a follower of Jesus or not, which this should not be. But the other thing is, we try to hide it. So our problems often in the church, we try to hide. We try to make it seem like everything is as perfect as we possibly can. Clearly, it's obvious to most that our life is not perfect, but we still try. And so then we try to do it one way, and then we say something different. And of course, we don't want to always be bemoaning our problems, because that's not good either. But we want I don't know if I could say a happy balance, but we want to be balanced. We want to be people of gratitude. But we're also people who often are hurting. And yet, typically, we have individuals who just complain about their problems all the time, which is not great. We want to be most fully people of gratitude. So, for instance, in my life, my health has really been a problem. And I pray and think, okay, Lord, what's going on? I know that you remember the story of Joseph. Joseph with coat of many colors. He was falsely accused that he did something with Potiphar's wife. He did not, and I'm not connecting myself to someone who's been falsely accused. I'm dealing with physical trouble that is caused by an autoimmune disease. But nonetheless, Joseph had to be stuck in the jail, and then he predicted accurately what would happen to the baker and the cupbearer, but he was forgotten. So he just had to stay in jail. He did well. He was helpful to the jailer, but he was just stuck in the jail. It was not good. It would have been terrible. And he was just stuck there and forgotten about. And he just had to stay in prison. And I would imagine, Joseph, his faith is strong, and yet I would imagine that he was really struggling, wondering, what happened to the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. What happened? Why was he stuck? Why was he stuck in prison? His father wouldn't know anything about him, his father Jacob. Clearly, he was a man of faith, and God gave him favor in some ways, and yet in other ways, he really had to suffer. So imagine just having to be in that prison for month after month, wondering, what is my life amounting to? I'm just collecting dust. Who knows what kind of insects or rodents they had in such a prison. So I know these days, these months, I can't do what I want to do. I really miss ministry that I was able to do. I miss being able to bless people more. So it can be discouraging for sure. But then I know, okay, the Lord is not finished with me. He has not put a period to the end of my testimony, to my story. My life journey is not over. Now, I don't know, will it ever be like it was in the past? Likely not. Will it be as great? Will it be better? Will it be worse? I do not know. What I do know is the Lord God promises to always be with us. And he tells us, as he tells us in Joshua 1:9, to be strong and courageous. And we say, okay, we can be strong and courageous. But then he says, do not be afraid. Okay, I've dealt with fear in the past, but thankfully in the past, God has set me free from living in fear. And so now I have more discouragement than fear. But in Joshua 1:9, it says, do not be afraid, and then do not be discouraged. Let me tell you, as you just, I imagine, saw me try to walk around, and again, I do my best to hide as many difficulties, as many imperfections, as many awkward aspects of my life as I can. Because, I'm human, and I think, how awful was that? Typically, when doing a video, you try to sit in a way that is the least awkward, the least problematic. You want your best side. If you have one side of your face or body or something that's a little better than the other, then typically for photos, what do? You usually shift and adjust so that maybe a certain mole or whatever is not the focus, because we like to focus on our best qualities. I do much better if I'm just sitting, and if it's just my shoulders and head up. It's better if you don't have to see legs spasm or something like this, or a foot that keeps dropping because it's having problems. But then I am reminded by the Lord God that I am being foolish. I am being so conceited, and at the very least so self-focused that is an issue. We should be, not that we think less of ourselves, because God has created us with great value. We are created in His image, male and female are created in His image. And it's glorious, and we are fearfully and wonderfully made, not in a scary way, but we have been marvelously made. Our Creator God is such a master craftsman. And He knew what was going to happen to us. He knew this. And yet, here we are with our issues. And if we don't have a physical problem right now, we will. If you live long enough, you will have a problem. So at a certain point, everyone becomes disabled. I call it my chariot, but this walker belonged to my grandfather before he died. And so because it's older, then one of the brakes has stopped working. But I managed to make just the other brake work okay. So it's kind of like my body. It's like my left leg still works okay, not great, but it still works. So I do everything I can to stand. If I stand and I stand on my left leg is doing 90% of the work, because my right leg just can't do it. At least not yet. But one thing I have to come to grips with, I know God can heal me. Of course He can. Will God heal me? I believe He will, because I believe it is part of His good, pleasing, and perfect will. However, what I do not know is a when. When will God heal me? I don't know. Often, according to my timing, what I would like, He should have healed me by the end of 2019, when I first started really having problems walking. At that time, I could still walk, but if I was doing prayer walking or something, I would walk for a time and then I would sit and pray. When I first started having problems walking, I had the thought, wow, everybody's starting to walk faster. Amazing, everybody. I used to walk so fast, and I would have to go in and out of the crowds because I walked way faster than most people. Occasionally, someone walked as fast as I would walk, but 90% of people would walk slower than me. But eventually, they started walking the same speed that I was. I was using the same amount of energy, but I had really slowed down, but I didn't realize it. I just thought they were all walking faster. I should have realized that if hundreds of people are walking faster, maybe it's that I am walking slower. Anyway, it has been a struggle. Attacking oneself is terrible, and unfortunately, on a figurative spectrum, we do it all the time. my body attacking my own body. It's awful, and I'm suffering because of it. And so, my prayer, my hope, is that not just my physical body to be restored, that my body would work together, that my cells would be unified, that they would be on the same side. We wouldn't be attacking each other. So I pray that physically for me, and I pray that the American church and even the American political situation, my prayer is that we can become unified. Thank you for praying with me.